Hello chess friends and welcome to Out of Chess channel and welcome back to the Computer Blitz Chess Championship in 2022. So we're following now the Superfinals between the two top engines, Stockfish 15 and the Dragon engine, and so far the result is really clear after more than 270 games that they played in the Superfinals so far. Stockfish has a plus 60 result against the Dragon engine, which is really wild when you think about it harder. It's a pure domination by the Fish here in the Superfinal, but also we have seen in the previous tournaments like the Computer Bullet Chess Championship and also the Computer Rapid Chess Championship that basically Stockfish is unbeatable, and also in the TCEC competitions recently Stockfish also won every tournament, so it's now simply pure domination by the Fish. So although the result is clear, Stockfish will eventually win a new tournament. Still I wanted to cover more games, and we're starting now with a beautiful Veresov attack here by Stockfish 15. Really amazing opening it is. It is a little bit forgotten opening, we have to say it, because it's not so often played in Grandmaster level, and it has never been played in top Grandmaster level, so you not see the Veresov attack in 2700 or maybe 2800 rating levels, so you see only maybe 2600 or maybe 2500 rated games. So in my opinion, the Veresov attack is risky. You meet with certain ideas of the London system, you meet also with certain ideas of the Tropovsky attack, but still it's kind of risky because you're not playing the natural Queen's Gambit, Queen's Indian style. You're not playing really the normal ideas. You're playing on a fast development, but as I said, it could be risky if your opponent knows what he's doing. So let's see now what is the Veresov attack and how Stockfish handled this opening against this other best engine, against the Dragon engine. So here d4 was played by Stockfish 15. We have knight to f6 by Dragon, knight to f3, and after move e6 we have here knight to c3. And you see now we're trying of course now to play the move e4, then the position would be perfectly fine here for white if you manage to get this kind of a pawn central control. So that's why black needs now to battle for the e4 square, play simply the move d5. And now comes the Veresov attack move, bishop to g5. And you see now the idea is clear. We want to still play e4, get our control of the center with knight takes e4, and of course we're playing on this dangerous spin because the knight is also protecting the square e4. So now there two choices. You can play of course h6, kicking away the bishop, or you can play knight from b to d7. So in my opinion, this move knight from b to d7 is a line that you should apply if you meet the Veresov attack. I myself like to play knight from b to d7 and protect the knight like this, but the prearranged line was now the move h6, which is maybe a slightly worse continuation here for black. In the continuation we have now bishop takes f6, queen to f6. You don't want to of course play g takes f6, it messes up a little bit your pawn structure in the center of the board. You have then this opportunity, e4 will be probably white's continuation, so white is trying to mess up here also the pawn structure, leave maybe here the structural weaknesses, h6, f6 and similar stuff. So that's why queen to f6. But now okay, you took with the queen, you're keeping healthy pawn structure on the king side, but the queen is not natural here. We have to say that queen is really endangered, so that's why in the continuation Stockfish continues with e4. We have d takes e4, and now after move knight to e4 we have queen to e7, and okay, the queen doesn't want to retreat here to d8 where it's on its starting square. Of course you don't want to play with the queen and then retreat with the queen on the same square. So here Dragon played queen to e7, but the downside about this move queen to e7 instead of queen to d8 is that you're standing in the way of the bishop. The bishop would love of course to come maybe on this diagonal, and Stockfish plays now normal idea, c3 prevents also queen to b4. Queen to b4 would be very annoying to handle for white, so that's why c3 is also a perfect move. And now from this point on, white has also good protection on dark squares, because we have to say it, when you give up a dark square bishop like this, like white did in the game, then you have to also protect your dark squares. Now c3 makes really sense in the continuation of the game. So now comes an interesting idea here by Dragon, g6. Dragon is trying to play on some ideas, bishop to g7, and then to break the position with the move c5, maybe even then afterwards if the position allows it. So far it's not possible, but let's talk about the common goals here. c5, b5, c4, maybe b4. You're trying to get an expansion here on the queen side with the support of the bishop, maybe including also the knight into the game. So this is the way to go. You're trying to break the pawn chain, this b2, c3, d4 pawn chain that white has built here. So that's now the main strategy that you can do here, but we have to say there is a certain problem about a black setup. You don't have the knight. The knight is actually the best best protector of the king when you castle, for instance, on the king side. So that's, I think, the downside. And these two knights by white are also very powerful. They're controlling the center of the board. They are very, really important now in the continuation of the game. So Stockfish plays an interesting continuation here, knight to e5. The downside again for black is here you cannot really compete with this knight on e5, which is really, really wild. It's really hard to kick away this knight from e5. Let's see now possible continuation. If you play knight to c6, we'll play knight takes c6 and mess up simply further the pawn structure. For instance, if you play knight to d7, this wasn't played in the game, but I was really curious what would have happened if, for instance, black plays now the move knight to d7. Knight to d7 can be met with a risky, it seems in the beginning that it's a risky choice, but actually it will be a brilliant choice. f4, you're supporting simply your knight on e5. I'm pointing out this wasn't played in the game, but we have to know really what's going on now on the board. So knight to e5, you play f takes e5. Okay, here black could have maybe an annoying check, queen to h4. Now you have to play knight to f2, and okay, bishop to g7 is maybe an opportunity to finally break and enter here with the move c5. But now after g3 you have to still step back, and now after bishop to g2 you cannot actually even play the move c5 because knight to e4 is going to happen, and then with knight to d6. When the knight comes on d6, in my opinion, this is a one-way ticket for white. White should be much, much better here. So instead of this move bishop to g7, after move knight to f2, you could play maybe here the move c5. You can break and enter immediately. You can try maybe to open the position. In my opinion, it meets with the idea when you are playing with the bishop pair, you should open the position as much as you can, but still it's risky because of bishop to b5. It's not so easy to push the pawns in the center of the board when you didn't castle. Now after bishop to d7, bishop takes d7, queen to d7, we can even castle. You can maybe take it out, but look at this, with knight to g4 we'll eventually take out this one. Rook to f7 is going to happen, knight to f6. So too many opportunities for white. Black should even resign the game immediately here. So as I said, it's really hard to kick away this knight from e5. c5, undermining the protection of the knight on e5 is not possible because this knight is controlling the c5. f6 is not possible anyway because you get knight to g6. So it's now a powerful piece, and it controls now really, really important squares in the center of the board. So that's why bishop to g7 was played by Dragon. We have now f4. Again, you don't want to play bishop to e5. You cannot get rid of this knight in the center of the board, because after f takes e5, again we'll see the same idea, but then eventually you will lose the battle here around the square f6. Knight to f6 is going to happen, so there is not a good protection against this weakness. So in the continuation after f4 we have kingside castling, and Stockfish plays now a wild idea. Stockfish launches a flank attack immediately, and it was really risky for me when I thought about this position harder. It seemed to me, what are you doing? Why are you launching a flank attack with such an endangered king? The king is still in the center. You cannot castle kingside. You still need one maybe tempo, 2 tempi at least, maybe even 3-4 tempi in order to secure the king by castling. But Stockfish is of course a monster in this kind of position. Stockfish breaks many times the basic principles that we know about chess, launches a flank attack immediately. Here now finally comes knight to d7. We have bishop to d3. If you play, for instance, some ideas of h5, if you want to maybe stop the progress of white, for instance, h5 is now really a beautiful opportunity that breaks really the position on the king side. If you try h5 to somehow stop this progress, then eventually white will play what will continue the pressure with the move g4. This is really brilliant because after h takes g5, h takes g4, queen to g4 is coming into the game. Look at this, all of these pieces are dancing. The queen is coming into the game with just one move far away from castling. Now we will secure eventually the king, and now with h5 I'm not sure even what's the best move, but you can have, I think, a certain feeling about this position. This should be devastating for black. This should be a monstrous attack now for white. So in my opinion, this is a perfect position for white. So in the continuation after bishop to d3, so you see you cannot even block white's progress here on the king side. You have to allow your opponent that he'll attack you now on the king side. So now that's why Dragon searches for different opportunities to open the game, because you have the bishop pair, and the bishop is love, of course, the open game, but there is not a good way to open the position. That's, I think, the main issue here in black's position. So we have here knight takes d7, bishop to d7. Okay, knight takes c5, another pawn is lost. But now after bishop to c6, at least Dragon managed to get the certain compensation. Okay, we lost the pawn, but now the bishops are very dangerous. We're trying to play b6. We're trying maybe to include the rooks into the game, then maybe even break the position with b4, splitting, as I said, the pawn chain in the beginning. That was our main goal, somehow to attack the position. So in the continuation, queen to e2, protecting the pawn on g2, b6, we have knight to e4, and now a rook to e8 here played by Dragon. Dragon is trying now a wild idea. Is trying now to play e5 and even sacrifice everything, because look at this, the queen is lined up on the e file, the rook, the king is lined up on the e file. Now when the rook came into the game here, it could be also dangerous now for white. But Stockfish, like Stockfish loves to do, is of course continuing with his plan, sort of, with the move h5. We have now e5. Now Dragon plays an immortal attack here. The game becomes really wild, and from this point on, we're facing one of the wildest tactical sequences that I've seen in my life. This is really, everything is pretty much forced here, because Stockfish simply took. We have f takes e5. Now the Dragon engine sacrificed the bishop for a pawn. We have d takes e5, but now after queen to e5, again, when I analyzed the game at home and when I watched the position, it seemed to me, what is going on here? What the hell is white doing here? Why is white staying for so long with the king in the center of the board? g3 is weak, e4 is weak, the rook will come into the game. But Stockfish, as I said, has everything calculated pretty well here. Play simply h takes g6. The problem is now you don't have time to take out the knight on e4. Okay, you would love to do that, but now we have an intermediate check. G takes f7. After king to f7, we'll simply get out of this mess. Queenside castle. And now after maybe something like bishop to d3, we take queen takes d3, and okay, in this tactical sequence, white gained a pawn, white won a pawn. But we have to also say this is not only a problem about pawns. We have to also say the king, black king, is much more endangered. We have also a weak pawn on h6, so it's much easier, I think, for white to attack black's king than it is for black to maybe attack white's king in this particular position. So this is not working. So let's go back. After move h takes g6, so we have seen bishop to e4 is not working immediately. So in the continuation, we have that's why f takes g6 by the Dragon engine, a rook to h4. Stockfish protects so far the knight on e4. We have now rook to f4. After rook takes f4, queen to f4. You see, even now queenside castling is not an opportunity anymore for Stockfish 15. But Stockfish plays now a beautiful defensive move, a beautiful intermediate move, g3. Kicking away the queen to the e file is very important. It's very crucial here, because after queenside castling, okay, you can take out now here the knight on e4, but now Stockfish counterpins sort of here with Dragon on the e file and plays now rook to e1. And now look at this move g3 was very important, because the queen is lined up again on the e file, and now there are certain tactical threats again. So that's why the next move is again pretty much forced. So this was, as I said in the beginning, really a forced immortal tactical sequence that these two engines pulled off here. After queen to g5, here Stockfish played queen to d2, queen takes d2, and after king takes d2, you cannot take now the bishop because the rook is hanging. Now the only defensive move is bishop to c6, but now finally the tactical sequence is basically over after bishop to g6. From this point on, we have reached an endgame in which white is simply up a pawn, but this was simply too monstrous. This was simply wild what happened. Really an immortal tactical sequence. So let's see when the fun started. We have here bishop to e5 happened in the move 18, and we're now in move 28. So basically it was a forced 10 move wild tactical sequence by these two top engines. Really immortal game it was for sure. So after move bishop to g6, okay, white gained the pawn. It's not so easy again to win the game, and then I'm glad again that we'll see an end game, how to win this kind of an end game, because it's very important also for us to win this kind of an end game, because I think many of us have reached this kind of a position and many times we didn't know what to do. So we'll see now how Stockfish is playing this +1 pawn endgame against the Dragon engine. So we have here rook to d8, the check, king to c2, we have king to g7, bishop to d3, we have king to f6. So far Dragon is playing actively with the king like you're supposed to do in such endgames. You should treat your king as an attacking piece, not something that you should defend. The king has to be active in endgame. So here perfectly fine moves by the dragon. We have rook to f1, and now rook to f5 after king to e6. Now rook to h5. Stockfish sensed there could be some problems here with the weak pawn on h6. So we have here rook to h8, and now Stockfish does the same, including simply the king into the attack. So we have now bishop to e8, rook to h4. We have now h5, a3. Very important move. Whenever you play against the bishop, you should place your pawns on opposite colors than the color that the bishop is covering. So now all of the pawns are on dark squares. They cannot be attacked, of course, by the light square bishop. So we have now king to e7, bishop to e2, bishop to f7. Now Stockfish is marching also with the king. Plays now in an intermediate check again. We have here king to e6, bishop to e2, and now after king to e7, rook to a4. Again, forcing sort of a structural weaknesses. Okay, this pawn is not protected, but now we have to say it when that happened. Now also the b6 now becomes a weakness. So we have here now rook to c4. Stockfish is trying maybe some ideas of rook to c6, attacking the bishop and also the pawn on b6. So that's why we have here bishop to e8, but now bishop to f3. We have rook to g8, attacking the pawn, but now king to f2. So Stockfish is getting closer and closer to the king side here. Stockfish is trying now to march with the king on h4 and is trying to grab now the pawn on h5. So we have here rook to f8, rook to e4, a check, king to g2, and now rook to h4. You have to protect now here this position with rook to h8. g4 so far is not working. This could be risky because then you get rook to g8. So that's why white should not rush into the attack. So first you have to get out of the g file. So after king to h3 was played by Stockfish 15, we have bishop to e6, king to h2, and now after king to e7, now comes rook to h5, and Stockfish grabbed another pawn, and this should be now a completely winning endgame here for white. So let's go back. Instead of this move king to e7, let's see what happens if you protect your pawn with bishop to f7. Then of course you get g4, and there's not a good way anymore to protect this. You could maybe try this idea. That's, I think, the only way maybe to get some kind of a draw, but we simply take bishop to h5. Okay, we play a check. You can of course take out this one, and actually, okay, black can maybe play this annoying check. Will eventually take out also the pawn on b2, but actually with the move a4, everything is good together. You can even protect the pawn with rook to c4. Maybe you can play king to d5, but now with bishop to f7, everything is so compact. Everything is protecting each other here. So in my opinion, this is the way to go. So this could be a nice setup of white. So that's why, as I said, even if you play something like bishop to f7, it's not working because of this g4 tactic. So that's why king to e7. Now, as we said, Stockfish grabbed the pawn and has now completely winning endgame here as well. So rook to d8, we have rook to b5, again attacking the pawn on b6, and very important move it was for Stockfish not to lose the pawn on b2. After rook to d2, rook takes b2, this would be a much better even position, I think, for black if this pawn would be taken. Then of course the c3 is weak, then also the a3 is weak. So that's why rook to b5, one of the most important now endgame moves now by Stockfish 15. So we have rook to d6, king to g1. Now Stockfish is getting the king a little bit more towards the center. Bishop to e4, bishop to c4. Now comes the check, and now again king to g2. Very important move, because if you play rook to d2, again we can cover ourselves. That's now the most important thing, and again we'll not lose the pawn on b2. After king to g2, we have rook to d8, rook to f4. We have now b5, and now Stockfish simply pushed the pawn further. Includes now, of course, the king into the game. We have here bishop to c6. Now comes a check. We have king to h4, bishop to e6, but now rook to g2 is covering everything. Again, we have sort of a situation where white is keeping all of the pieces combined, compact here. Bishop is protecting the rook is protecting the b2 pawn, and the rook is supporting also the further progress of this passer on the g file. So really a nice setup here by white. So we have rook to f1, we have bishop to b5. Stockfish grabs even another pawn. Really wild stuff. So we have here now rook to f4, bishop to d3. Now Stockfish moves simply the king further, plays rook to d2, is of course threatening some ideas of bishop to g6, this covered check, and then trapping the rook. We have have king to c7, bishop to f5. Of course, simplification is perfectly fine here for white. If you trade off the bishops, then we create a passer. The king is out of game because it's cut off by the rook's activity, and would just push the passer, and in one particular moment black has to give up the rook, and then again it's game over for black. So bishop to b3, we have king to f4. Now Stockfish plays rook to e2, and now simply of course push the pawn further. We have rook to e4 attacking the bishop. Now g6. This was a quite stunning move here by Stockfish, because it seems so after bishop to g6 that you could maybe lose the bishop on f5, but actually white is winning here the game, because after rook to e6 we can now also take out the bishop on g6. So this is not working. After move g6, you have to play bishop to g8, king to g5. So the king is getting closer and closer to the action. We have king to d5, g7 attacking the rook, rook to a8. We have here rook to e7, king to d6, and now again playing much more active here with the king. We have rook to b8, rook to d7, we have king to c5, and now again beautiful idea here by Stockfish, bishop to e6, and after rook to b6 it seems again that this bishop could be trapped. But now after rook to d5, you have only one square, you have to get in front of the bishop. So after king to c4, we have here a beautiful discover check, and now the rook is hanging. Okay, here the dragon engine took the bishop on e6, but Stockfish wins the exchange by the move rook takes b6, and of course this is winning. We have here bishop to d5, rook to d6 attacking the bishop. The bishop has only one square. Now Stockfish attacks the bishop further. If you move the bishop, then we'll have the promotion. So we have here king to b3, rook takes h7. We have here the promotion, a check. Now the queen is cutting off the escape routes for the king. We have king to d5, rook to d3, and after queen to c4, here a dragon got checkmated in the center of the board. So amazing game by Stockfish 15. Really wild stuff. Really incredible performance in the Veresov attack. As I said, this is not a common opening. This is not an opening that you see many times played in top grandmaster level, but you see it's playable. There are interesting lines, especially in the beginning. You saw how powerful these knights were by Stockfish 15, but it's, I think, a risky choice. If you dive into the Veresov attack more, you should also be familiar, of course, with some different silence, with also some different opportunities for black. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed the game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Interesting ideas in d4 play for sure. If you want to see more beautiful Stockfish 15 games and also some other top end games, check out our commented chess games played by computer series. Here's the link of our playlist, and if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.